Hello, everyone. Welcome to our live stream, Scholarships, How to Score Big. My name is Gage Boardman with Education Quest Foundation. Now, this time of year, scholarship applications and deadlines are starting to really ramp up, but there is no need to get overwhelmed. We'll be breaking down everything scholarships with the help of our guest tonight, Eric Drumheller with Education Quest Foundation. Welcome, Eric. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Gage, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Before we get started, just a quick reminder to our audience watching to post any questions you might have in the chat as we go. We will answer them at the end of our live stream. So, Eric, just to kind of jump in, for anyone who is unfamiliar, can you please just introduce yourself and what you do for Education Quest Foundation?
Sure. Thanks, Gage. My name is Eric Drumheller, and I'm the Vice President of Grants and Scholarships for Education Quest. So what that means is I oversee Education Quest's scholarship programs and programs that we give money to high schools and to middle schools in Nebraska.
Awesome. So yeah, we have an expert in here, y'all. So just to dive straight into scholarships, when should students start to begin applying for scholarships and how can they stay organized throughout the process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when to start applying? Actually, when to start looking? Yesterday. When to start applying? The sooner the better. Really, most scholarships, Education Quest has a database on our website called Scholarship Quest, where students can find Nebraska-based scholarships. So most of those scholarships have deadlines in the spring, with most of those being due in April.
Awesome. And do you have any suggestions on like keeping track of all the scholarships you're applying to?
Sure, sure. I think the first thing I would do is, so you go onto a site, you find scholarships. I would review the scholarship first to make sure that you qualify. You just meet those minimum eligibility criteria. If it says you must be from Nebraska and you don't live in Nebraska, you shouldn't apply for it because you wouldn't even be considered for it. As far as organizing, I would consider the deadline. So take a look at the deadline. That's going to give you a couple pieces of information. It's going to either say, is it postmarked by that deadline, which means it just has to be, go to the post office if it's old fashioned, regular mail. On that says, October 15th. That's the day it was postmarked. Or is it received by deadline? If it means it's received by, that means it has to be in that scholarship provider's office by that date. You need to back those deadlines up. So the third thing is I'd also take a look at the application process to kind of get a sense of how much work is going to be involved with that application. Is there an essay? Are there letters of recommendation? Do you need to get a transcript? All of those things take time to get in place to put together a full application. So really, when you think about organizing that, it's really important to understand all of that. What I would do is suggest go put that deadline, meaning the date you need to make sure that it's either in the mail or at the provider on your calendar a couple days before, and then work backwards from that. If you know you're going to need to get a letter recommendation, add time. If you know you need to get a transcript, add time. If there's significant essays, add time. And that should help you manage that. Just in Scholarship Quest, there's also a couple tools that can help you manage that application process. One is if the scholarship has a specific deadline, so it says it's due April 15th, you can check a box and Scholarship Quest will email you or send you a text message about 14 days before that deadline as a reminder. And then the other tool we have in Scholarship Quest to help organize the process is you can check if you've applied. So again, you can see, yep, I've applied for that one. I'm done. I don't need to worry about it. This one, I still need to work on.
Yeah, both Scholarship Quest and actually just putting it in my phone helped me so much. Just because there's so many, you're keeping track of so much at once.
There is a lot of information when it comes to scholarships. Agree.
And so, Eric, now that we kind of know how to stay organized and everything, I know you already mentioned Scholarship Quest and some other places, but where are kind of the best places and practices for students to look for scholarships?
Sure. And I'll go back to Scholarship Quest because that is really a good resource for Nebraska students. It is a database that there has to be a Nebraska tie for a scholarship to be listed in there. So this is your awards that your community has. It's the local service organizations like Rotary or Lions or PEO have available. Your local church, community foundation, businesses, other organizations have awards in there, and all of them have a tie to Nebraska. We do our best every year to verify every award in that database, that the deadline is accurate, that the application information is accurate, and that the amount is accurate. If you create an account, we'll also send you an email at the beginning of each month with any new scholarship quests or any new scholarships that have been added. Education Quest, with Scholarship Quest, we own that. We never ever release any of that information. We keep that internally. We don't ever provide it to anyone else, and anything that could identify you or any of the scholarship providers, so you know that information is safe. So Education Quest, Scholarship Quest is the local source to do scholarships online. The other one is on our website. There are 8 national sites that Education Quest recommends. And if you go to educationquest.org and how to pay for college and click on scholarships, you'll see them listed there. These are sites that we have reviewed and are comfortable really recommending. When we review them, we take a look at things like their privacy policy, their terms and conditions. As you put in your profile information, what are they doing with it? Are they selling it? Are they using it for other purposes than what they're stating? That's something that we want to make sure that students are aware of. The ones we recommend, we're comfortable with. If you're looking and find other site that's not listed there and you want to take a look at it and try doing it, it's really up to you. I would encourage you, though, to look at their privacy policy to see what they do with the information that you get. You might fill it out not realizing what you're doing and then get a whole lot of mail coming your way. 2 other sources that you can find scholarships. Talk to your school counselor. They are fantastic resources, especially for any scholarships that are specific to your school. And then if you know what college you're going to, make sure you get your financial aid information submitted. Visit with that college, as they might have institutional aid available, and they'll know the application process for those.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of my scholarships actually turned out to be the college-based ones that
Yeah.
I thankfully got everything submitted in time for and pretty early at that, just to get into that group of scholarship recipients. And definitely the school counselor as well, because that's where I actually found scholarship quest through, was my school counselor. So go talk to your school counselors, y'all. They want to help you.
They definitely want to help you, and they are experts in especially your local scholarships, and then they also know what scholarship sites to recommend.
Yeah. And so now our students have gotten organized, they've found some scholarships, and now they're actually getting to applying. Eric, what are kind of like the key elements of a really strong scholarship essay, and how can students tailor their essays for different scholarships?
Sure, and that's a great question. And no surprise if you started looking or you looked at scholarships last year, most scholarships require some type of essay. That's really your chance to sell yourself to the scholarship provider, to let them know who you are and why they should consider giving you some funding. It's worth the time trying to get this right, so you really can put your best foot forward on the scholarship essay. And one of the upsides, and we'll get into a little bit more in just a second, is a lot of scholarship essays are similar. So once you get one done and it's polished and you're happy with it, there's probably a pretty good chance that you can recycle that essay for another scholarship provider. I say that with a little asterisk on it. Make sure that you proofread it before you resend it, because there's nothing worse than reading through a scholarship provider, an essay or a scholarship application, and they reference the wrong name. So just one thing to do. And then that also makes sure you don't have any really miss error in it or something that just would be really embarrassing. So my biggest suggestions with essay is make sure you're answering the question. I know that sounds simple, but I can tell you from reading more scholarships than I can count, that is the top piece of advice that I can give you. Make sure you're answering that essay prompt. I've read beautifully written essays, great story. They didn't answer the question. And then when the scholarship provider is scoring that, doing their selection process, it doesn't rank well. Really, it could really hurt you in even being considered for it. So my suggestion is read the question, write the essay, go back and reread that question, and then reread your essay and ask yourself, did I answer that question? A couple other things as you're thinking about your essay. You know, give the review committee a reason to remember you. You know, share a story about something that's important to you, some desire you have for the future, what your goals are, what you're excited about, you know, something that makes you unique. I'd also suggest that students, as they're putting together essays, follow good composition rules, have an introduction, a conclusion, try to make sure that it's error-free. You know, and it always helps to have someone proof it. Errors, especially in scholarship essays, are can be very distracting. And that also goes just into making sure you're proofreading. There's a word count. So I know some of the scholarships Education Quest has, we say 250 words. It needs to be 250 words. Don't think sending 600 words is going to help you. That may end up hurting you because you need to follow directions. Gage, there's also been another interesting thing that has probably happened in the last 18 months to a year, and it's this wonderful tool called AI, artificial intelligence. And you smile because I probably know where I'm going to go with this one.
Yep.
It's a great tool to help with scholarship essays. It's a great tool to get you started and maybe help organize some of your thoughts. I can tell you, using AI to write your responses, they're going to figure it out. And here's how we figure it out. We get several scholarship applications in. The essays start sounding the same. You see the same words used, the same phrases used, the same responses used. You know, that doesn't speak well about your abilities and your capabilities. If you're going to use AI, I would really just use it to get you started. You know, maybe help you organize some of your thoughts that you have. But from there, you really need to take the time to go through it and really rework it so it is your original thought and reflects your work.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up AI actually, because that's just booming through the internet right now. So use it responsibly, use it as a tool. And when it comes to, I know you mentioned proofers, are like your English teacher, is that like a good person to go get your essay proofed by?
You know, yes, the English teacher would be fantastic, but really just having another set of eyes from anyone look at it is helpful. They're going to catch things that you wrote it. You're just going to naturally know what that was supposed to say. And they reading it will be like, oh, you spelled that wrong, or you used the wrong there. You know, things that you would just go through and not even realize it. If you can get into an English teacher, that's fantastic. But really, any adult would be beneficial to have someone help you take a look at that.
Yeah. And other portions of many of these scholarship applications also ask for letters of recommendation. And so I just wanted to know, how important are these letters to scholarship committees, and how can students secure strong letters of recommendation?
Sure, they're important. If they weren't important, the scholarship provider wouldn't be asking for it. You know, the letter recommendation helps with a couple things. One, it provides an outside view of the applicant. So, you know, someone, their skills, their achievements. It can help validate what the applicant is putting in their own essay. You know, the two are matching. So it helps with that. And then it also shows that the student can follow directions and instructions, which is important. And it's important for scholarships, and it's important to go into college, and it's important for life as you can follow instructions and directions. I can tell you from my personal experience being involved in scholarship application processes and review committees, where the letter of recommendation really matters is when you have two tied applicants or two or more tied applicants. Application wise, they're all fine. They're good applications, strong applications, but we have to make a decision and only fund one of these three that are all tied. That's where a letter of recommendation can make the application or break the application. If it's a good letter of recommendation where the person knows the applicant, could share specific information, that helps. If it's a really short letter of recommendation that's not clear, not specific, that can hurt the application. And when you're, again, dealing with a tie, which one are you going to pick? The one that has the best letter of recommendation. I think you asked about, the person applying for a letter of recommendation, how can they find someone? What you need to do, you need to make sure they have enough time. Don't drop, I need a letter of recommendation on your English teacher. I need it tomorrow. That's not fair to them, and that's not fair to you. Give them enough time. And this is where planning starts, of starting to think about what you're all going to need from this. Uh, Give them also permission to not write a letter of recommendation. I ask, would you please be willing to write a letter of recommendation? And give them the ability to say, I'd love to, but right now I can't, I don't have the time. Because that's going to help you find someone else who does have the time, who could spend it to give you a great letter of recommendation. Other things you can do with a letter recommendation is make sure the person you're asking to write it knows a little bit about the scholarship. Is it a specific type of scholarship? Is it for sporting or activities, or some sort of skill or trait you had? Make sure they know so they can incorporate that. You might want to consider giving them your activities resume so they've got some good background information about you. Make sure they understand the deadlines and how the letter needs to be submitted. Do they need to give it back to you, the student? Do they need to mail it somewhere, or do they need to do it online?
Yeah, and you just mentioned actually activities resume. Can you just go into that a little bit further for people who may not be familiar?
Sure, Activities Resume is a fantastic tool on our website where students over their entire high school career can go in and list their awards and activities and involvement. So it's all collected in one place. And then when they get around to applying to scholarships, they can simply just print it out, and they've essentially got all their history of their activities in one location.
Yep. Another thing I used in high school, and it was great. So use it, people. It's out there. And so just to circle back real quick to scholarship searches, is there any advantages to focusing on local scholarships versus national ones? And how should students kind of balance their efforts between the two?
Really, I think the best would be to do both. Look at Scholarship Quest, look for the local scholarships. Those are scholarships that are really restricted to a specific place. So it could be your school, your community, your county, a region, or the state. So the pool isn't as big as the national sites, which are really anyone in the United States could apply for these scholarships, or really anyone around the world may be able to apply for these scholarships. But I think it's important for you to do both Scholarship Quest and then a couple of the national sites we recommend on our website. We'll often hear things about the smaller awards or the smaller scholarships, and I really encourage students to really think about those awards. There's not a lot of applicants to them. I think students oftentimes say, I have to write an essay and it's only $300. Well, if you spend 2 hours writing that essay and you get it, that's $150 an hour. The minimum wage in Nebraska right now is $12 an hour. So if you take that 150 and you say that was your full-time job and that's you were getting paid, that's $312,000 a year. It really does pay to try to get as many scholarships as you can. And on the other side, the more you can get the free money to help pay for college, the happier you'll be when you're done, because you won't have student loan debt.
Exactly. And like going back to planning, I remember applying to some scholarships, like I did it pretty early on. And when it came for award time, I didn't even remember applying for them. And it started to add up, helping me pay for college. So again, moral of the story today is do not procrastinate.
Do not procrastinate.
All right, Eric, I have one final question for you before we get to some of the audience questions. And it's a pretty popular one. What are your thoughts on paid scholarship search service?
Oh, that's a great question. Simple, don't do it. Here's some things that you'll see on the paid services. You might see it's like, we guarantee you're going to win. I think that's a little bit misleading. Someone to say, I'm going to guarantee you can win. I can tell you, again, serving on review committees, there's nothing they can do to guarantee they're going to get that scholarship. We'll do all the work. Really? You're going to do all the work? How are you going to know what scholarships I qualify for? How are we going to, again, these are just things that are just not the best use of resources. And the other thing, as I said a little bit earlier, also be, concerned about what data they're collecting about you and what else they might be doing with it. Scholarship Quest is free. Information from your school counselor is free. Information from colleges is free. All this information is free. I would definitely do Scholarship Quest, do a couple national search sites, organize yourself, take a look at the deadlines, use your calendar, write out when you need to have certain things done. You can do this on your own. You don't need to pay someone to do it.
Yeah. I remember logging in one time to a paid scholarship service site and just being absolutely bombarded with pop-up ads. So just be careful, y'all. And so let me really quickly turn into some of our audience questions here. Thank you, Eric, for all your expertise so far. What is the best way to find scholarships that are not need-based?
Again, Scholarship Quest has not need-based aid. The national search sites have aid that may or may not be need-based. I know on Scholarship Quest, we have a field that will show on the profile results that says this is a financial need is considered. I think if you see one that's need-based, it's worth maybe looking a little bit more about what do they mean by need. There are some scholarship providers that have very specific, regulate or guidance around need. The others that just say, I don't have need, or may not be as specific about what need is available. But there's both need-based aid and non-need-based aid available.
It's a tongue twister.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a tongue twister tonight.
Somebody else asked, who should I get recommendation letters from?
So here's what I would suggest. You find someone who knows you well. So this could be a teacher, a coach, a mentor, a religious figure in your life, someone that you might volunteer for if you're in some sort of community service. I think any of those, someone who knows you well and can tell your story. The one person I would caution you to use for a letter recommendation would be someone that's related to you. That presents a little bit of conflict of interest. I know my mom would only say good things about me. It wouldn't matter what I did. She would only say good things about me. That's a little bit hard to be able to take that as you're reading a letter recommendation versus if I had my English teacher write it for me. She's going to be a little bit more objective in how she sees me and my performance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I think that's all the audience questions we had. So we're going to start wrapping up here. Eric, thank you again for joining us tonight. If we didn't get to your question, please reach out to any of our offices for free college planning help. As always, you can find our contact information at educationquest.org. Also, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube for more of these live streams. We have helpful videos, guides, FAFSA demo, all that good stuff. You can also follow us on Facebook, X, and Instagram to stay up to date on all the latest developments with the FAFSA and college planning. Finally, don't forget to sign up for Countdown to College to get a short weekly email to keep you in the loop. Registration can be found at the bottom of our homepage on educationquest.org, and we're going to share that link right now in the chat. We will see you right back here next month on Wednesday, November 20th at 7 p.m. for our next live stream preparing for the FAFSA. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Eric, and have a great evening.